Hey there, fellow plague rats. That's Britt.
And that's Tiff.
And welcome to Quick Car Cuts, where we watch a movie in the theater
and then talk about it in the car right afterwards.
Hence, the car. And today we saw
Nosferatu.
So I will start off by saying it is a very artsy movie. It's a very artsy movie.
Yes.
There are some beautiful shots, beautiful long shots. Like, you can tell where the cuts are, but it's intended to be a long shot. The music does a very good job of setting a very scary tone for certain things. Yeah, it's very interesting. Well, Brittany knows this. I have kind of a vendetta against Nosferatu, the original. Because, for those who don't know, Nosferatu... Do you want to get a word in before I start doing all of this?
I'll let you do your thing.
Okay. Nosferatu was originally made as a plagiarism of Dracula, because they didn't have the rights for Dracula, so they decided to change the name and the location and the time period and keep everything else the same, except the ending. I will say the ending is different. So I was kind of like, why would you want to remake the plagiarism instead of just remaking Dracula? But there are so many Dracula remakes. So.
To bounce off that for a second, I have not seen the original. I started watching it today, actually. I understand there's another remake from the 70s, I think. And then there's Shadow of the Vampire.
I love Shadow of the Vampire.
And those are things I all intend to watch. I actually stopped myself from watching it because I wanted to experience this as its own thing and then go back and compare it. So I have no such vendettas, but I will agree it is an incredibly artsy movie. It is beautiful. I'd say every hair was in place. The acting was superb, the music, the cinematography. There's just so much I could say about the movie in that regard. And on that same point, if you didn't like The Witch, and you didn't like, what was it, The Lighthouse? Or, any of other...
And The Northman.
The Northman. If you don't like those, you're not going to like these either.
It's very, very similar style of The Witch, for sure.
That being said, I really liked The Witch. So, I really like Nosferatu.
It's kind of funny that we're going to have, two completely different views where you have never seen it before, and I have seen the original, and I'm very familiar with the original, so it's very interesting coming from two different sides of it. It is a very slow burn. I don't know if it's a slow burn, because the opening, I will say, the cold open, terrifying.
Yeah.
So terrifying, very good, set the tone for the movie right away. But it is a very slow movie overall. Yeah. It's a 2-hour-long movie.
Yeah, but I don't feel like it drags. I feel like it takes its time to really put you in the world. There's a lot of times where I found myself, particularly during some earlier scenes, where I was like, oh, this is disorienting, or oh, this is a lot of time spent on this one aspect, but then I realized that the disorientation was on purpose. It was really good at setting you up in a world where, what's in front of you isn't necessarily real, and you're completely at the mercy of a very dark, malevolent being. And I really enjoyed that, actually. So for me, though it was 2 hours, I don't personally feel like it dragged.
I think my favorite part about Nosferatu is definitely the shadow work, which harkens to the original. The original Nosferatu was known for their use of shadow, and how, him the shadow coming up the stairs.
Oh, yes.
The part where he kind of grabs onto somebody's heart through the shadow. The shadow work is absolutely beautiful, and I'm really glad that they used it in the way that they did in the movie.
They absolutely took that concept and expanded it and worked with it, and that was so cool to see. And I'm sure there's going to be somebody in the comments who knows more than I do about film history, and I apologize for that, but it feels at times very impressionistic, which is, I think, a similar trait from some other movies of that time, especially early horror movies.
I feel like I'd be really interested in seeing Robert Eggers do a Dr. Caligari movie, just because I know it's along the same lines, but it'd be very interesting to see what he does with it and expands on it, because Nosferatu was not a super long movie at all, and they expanded on the plot a bit and were able to make like a 2-hour-long feature out of it. So I'd be interested to see how he would take a story like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to touch on some more general positives before we really get into spoilery territory. Again, acting was so spot on, at times completely unsettling and tragic, and everyone was on their top marks for this one. I really think so. And like we mentioned before, cinematography, it's a beautiful movie. Like, there's really great use of what I don't think is necessarily black and white, but desaturation
Very
in certain
much so.
scenes. And in some cases, there's like a hint of color on a character, but the scene in front of them is very desaturated to where it feels like it's black and white. And it's really cool at separating this world of the living, very safe area of color, and the unsafe realm of Count Orlok.
It's really interesting too, because I'm going to go back to in the original. In the original, it is a black and white film. However, they use tones to tell the time of day. Like, blue tones are for night. Amber tones and sepia tones are for the day. So there was still a use of color in the original, but it is completely desaturated here. But to me, I did not find it distracting at all.
No, I thought it was a really neat way to reference the original while still doing your own thing. Because another great thing about this movie, for me, I know not everyone else may have felt the same, but the use of like period appropriate writing for the dialogue, and
Bonnets! People wore bonnets in this movie!
And clothes, and it all felt... Oh my god, I forgot where I was going with this. It felt like if you're not a person who can do that, like, going into black and white would have sent you over the edge. So I think it was writing that line, because I feel like only true nerds would have gone in and watched a 2-hour movie with period accurate dialogue and really artsy camera movements and choices, and black and white would have sent them over the edge. I just don't think they would have, like, regular people wouldn't have done that.
I think one of my favorite uses of light in this movie, too, because it's very much, the characters are in light, the back's in darkness, so you think something's going to pop out at you. But one of my favorites is when Thomas gets to the carriage gets to Thomas, and he's like silhouetted in black and everything else is in black, but there's a little white line of light around him from the back and from the front, so it seems like the moon is coming straight down, and you can definitely see him easily on such a dark background, despite him also being in silhouette, which I felt was very cool.
Yes, I agree.
Downsides? Or do you...
I'll let you go first, yeah.
My downside for this was... I actually need a second to think about it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Pause. Cut there.
No, that's good. I would say in terms of darkness, if you're gonna wait to watch this movie at home, watch it at night with your lights off, because it is very dark in places. And I like, there's sometimes in the theater I'm like, to be fair, I think that was intentional, so.
Speaking of light, where it's everybody's light, the dark background, you think things are going to jump out at you, there were a lot of jump scares in this movie.
A decent amount.
More than I was anticipating. That, to me, I personally am not a fan of jump scares at all. A couple of them really got me. So I kind of wish that they would have just let more of the story be the creep factor and the characters themselves, rather than relying on a lot of like the jump scare stuff. Mind you, the cold open jump scare it worked great for the story, but I didn't feel like a lot of the other ones necessarily were story driven. It was more just for the shock factor.
Yeah. I think the jump scares, for me personally, towed the line. There is a scene, maybe about halfway, more like 3/4 of the way through the movie, where you're like, oh my god, not again. But it's not. It's not a jump scare, not the ones that we've had before.
Is it Anne in the hallway? Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah. But you were just like, oh no. They're setting it up. It's so quiet. The camera keeps going over her shoulder. What is it? Oh, it's just Ellen. Okay. And so you know what? I'll appreciate that, because I think that's a filmmaker who goes, I know what they're expecting. Like, we're just going to let that tension sit there for a while and change up what they expect. So I thought it towed the line for me. I'm not always a fan of jump scares and shock, but it didn't bother me that much. I know it's different for you, though.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to get into spoilers?
Sure.
All right, here is your spoiler warning in 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so.
Do we need to talk about the character himself, Count Orlok?
Oh, of course.
So, we all kind of know the picture of Nosferatu. He's been everywhere. He was even in SpongeBob. Mm-hmm. We grew up with Nosferatu in SpongeBob. His name is Count Orlok. His name is not Nosferatu. I felt that it was okay. I appreciated that he wasn't ever really fully seen. There are a couple scenes where you do see him, but it's more like full body shots. We're not super focused on him. I know a lot of people have gotten really pissed off about the mustache.
Oh, really?
But so in Dracula, he has a mustache. They talk about his mustache. Right. So it was kind of like, oh, that's a fun nod to the original Dracula 2 novel, because I'm like, okay, here we go. I loved the, decaying back of his head. Yeah. It was gross and grody, and I liked it a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, I thought it was a great design, because it would have been obvious to go with something reminiscent of the original, but to do something of their own, I think, was the better take. And again, yeah, I liked not seeing him directly except for maybe a few shots, because it did help to keep him mysterious and scary, honestly. They did a really good job of that. I liked him.
Well, and the original design of Nosferatu, or Count Orlok in the original, he is very inhuman, and you're kind of like, how the hell could somebody not look at him and be like, oh my god, this is a monster, it's not just a normal person? And here they did give him, he's still monstrous, he's still terrifying, but he's more human, and he's more of a corpse.
Yeah.
He is more of a gross, decayed, reanimated corpse than necessarily just a creature.
Right. Which was a great design feature, honestly. Mm-hmm. Just to talk specifically about one scene that I really loved was when Thomas was being pushed towards the fire after he cut his hand. Mm-hmm. And just...
That was beautiful!
Beautiful work by Nicholas Hoult, because that slow build of terror. Like, okay, so we've all been in a situation, right? Maybe it's just me, where you go turn the lights off at night and you run to your room because you just think something's after you. That's a very small taste of when, like, terror just overcomes your senses for a second. And this character is just subjected to it. Something's not right. Things are not adding up. I just want to do my thing and leave, but I have to do this. Like, he's caught between this wall and the rock and a hard place, and he just eventually succumbs to the terror in his face, and it is so wonderfully acted and shot and paced. Really good.
I think my favorite shot of the whole movie is after Thomas has attempted to kill Count Orlok, and he's just kind of now his slave, and we get the shadow work again, where he kind of comes up and he like looks like he's gonna grab his heart, but instead so you think he's in front of him, and then he gets Thomas to instead turn around and open the door for him, and then he's behind him with the dogs like in the hallway I love that shot. It's such that tiny little scene. It was such a good tongue-in-cheek for me. Anything else that you want to touch on before critiques?
I'm gonna touch on how you make a Nosferatu scary 2024, over 100 years after the concept has been introduced. We are so used to like Scream type movies where like an Abigail, like what kind of vampire is it? Like,
oh my gosh.
Like, garlic and Twilight, I don't know. So you're used to all these ideas of, we as a culture have these things. So the next thing is to go into the meta commentary of us as a culture with vampires. You just go backwards, and that's another reason why I think this works so well, is the full immersion into this fear and overwhelming your senses, and it really builds an atmosphere where a creature like this Count Orlok is genuinely scary, because I don't know what he can do. I see the effect he has on people just by being in a room where he's not overtly threatening, but he is so off and he is so terrifying, and just his presence and what he can make you do and will you to do is terrifying. And I really want to applaud the movie for that, for taking this concept and making him scary in a new but also old-fashioned way. So I really like it.
Nice. Getting into the critiques. My big qualm with this movie is that, my big qualm with this movie is that in order to kind of expand the plot and explain why Orlok is going after Ellen, is that they made it this thing where she was really depressed, and so she prayed to God for someone to be close to her, but he answered, and then they had sex, but then she met Thomas, and then they stopped, but then Thomas got sent to him so he could come back. It was so... It didn't make sense, and it really pulled me out of the story. Like, I get that they were trying to say that they had a connection before this, instead of just him being like, oh man, your wife's hot, I want her, kind of thing. But it did not make sense to me at all, and I did not like it.
Okay. I'll give you that. If it doesn't track with you, it doesn't track with you, you know. I was okay with it because I viewed it as just like, I can't think of the character's name, but Willem Dafoe's character said that, you know, in an ancient world, she would have been a priestess of Isis because she has this otherworldly, ethereal thing with her. She has something of the divine, of the spirit world, and because of that confluence and that interaction, you know, she ended up running afoul of the wrong person, and it was okay for me. Yeah, I totally respect, though, especially as a person who's seen the original and seen, like, other related media to it, if that didn't track for you, if that was too much, so I respect that.
Remember, we just saw this.
We literally
like
just
5
saw
minutes ago, so...
We got the 9 o'clock showing, so if I'm yawning, get over it. And movies don't start for like another 20-30 minutes after
so
anyway.
This movie's 9:40.
It is midnight. So, deal with it. Anyway.
Lots of rats in this movie.
Oh, so many rats.
So, I will say, I think not funny enough, but the darkest thing in this whole movie that literally made me go, oh my god, they did that, was when they killed the kids. Because you hear them screaming, and my first thought is, oh, that's gonna be just a vision to get her out of the room. And then it goes, oh no, he's actually killing them. They're not gonna show it. They did. He literally finished a kid and chucked her on the floor and held up the other kid, and I was like, damn, Nosferatu went there.
Yep.
That was...
You gotta love the R rating, honestly.
Oh my gosh, it was intense, but it worked in the moment. And I didn't have... I actually was, like, blown away by it.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Well, that's another example of like doubling down on the fear factor of what he can and will do, is that children mean nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Family means nothing. He will take what he wants when he wants it. And that's doubly scary. Texas Roadhouse.
Texas
closed.
Roadhouse has failed us.
This is why I have...
It's midnight, so we gotta be fast.
Did you have more critiques? Do you have anything else?
I think I need to sit with this a little more before I have more of a realized thought process of this movie, because it is so artsy. It is a very slow burn movie of jump scares where you think something's going to happen and then it doesn't. So like my heart rate's going the whole time, which, you know, is a health concern for me. So I think if I have a second watch of it, I will enjoy it more, because I know that I don't have to sit there and be worried about something happening.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, you remember when we saw The Substance, our car cut was like, I don't know if I ever want to see that again.
And I love it. I will watch it all the time.
Anytime someone wants to put it on, we'll watch it.
Put on The Substance.
These are just quick initial thoughts once we get into the car, so our opinions can absolutely change. Sometime you and I talked about doing like an end of year recap about what we saw and like our feelings when we first saw the movie, and then like now.
I think that'd be a good thing to do.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Let us know if you want to hear that.
Yeah, let us know if you want a car cut comparison.
Final thoughts. Anything to kind of close out that you want to say?
Final thoughts. I think this was a really beautiful movie in a lot of ways. And I think the marketing was fantastic. I do think, again, if you didn't have a lot of good traction with The Witch or The Lighthouse or Northman, you probably aren't going to have the same traction with this. But if you understand that and you still want to see it, then I would definitely recommend it. It's definitely something I would recommend for people who love film history, for fans of the older Gothic style movies. Definitely.
I will say that it's super artsy. There are some beautiful, beautiful shots in it. You're not going to feel good watching this movie, so just be aware it's a very bleak, it's a very dark movie, both visually and like mentally. So just be prepared for that going in.
Definitely
which again,
not a background movie.
Which again, definitely the marketing did a great job of what you were going to get with this movie.
Agree. So
rating wise, I think that after first viewing, I am probably going to give this 6 out of 10 rats.
My rating upon first viewing, I'm definitely going to give this an 8 out of 10 rats. I think this is another movie, kind of like The Substance, that when I sit with it a little bit longer, I'll have more serious feelings on it. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie.
Thank you guys for sticking around and watching. Make sure to let us know in the comments below what you thought of the movie and what movie you'd like us to see next.
But until next time, that's Tiff.
That's Britt.
We'll see you on the next Quick Car Cut.
Bye.